Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So I want to have a look at retrogrades today. I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I've not had the chance. So here we go. Right, now, first of all, let's have a look what retrograde means in today's astrology. Okay, so I've got just picture there, a very basic picture of the solar system. Now, I just want to say here, there's a lot of things on social media at the moment about the Earth being in a different place, or the sun going around the Earth, or the Earth being flat, etc. Now, I have not actually been up into space, so I can't say 100% what's what. So I'm going to stick with what I've been taught and what we are taught in schools, okay? I'm not saying that anything else is right or wrong. It's up to each person to make their own mind up. But I'm going to stick to what I've been taught and what we use in astrology. Okay, I just want to point that out first of all. So here is a very basic picture. And I'm sorry these words are going to be the wrong way around on the camera. But don't worry about that. It's planets more than the actual words. Okay, so we've got the sun here. And as we're taught, the planets go around the sun in orbit. And here's Mercury. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and therefore it has less of a distance to make a complete circle than a planet like Pluto, for instance, which has more of a distance to cover to make a complete circle. Okay, now that's just literal common sense, isn't it, really? The distance, the further away from the sun the planet is, the further distance it has to cover to get around and make a complete cycle. Okay, now the Earth is that one there, the third planet away from the sun. Now, in retrograde, basically, because the Earth is here, third away from the sun, it's nearer to the sun than the outer planets. So the Earth has less of a distance to cover to get around than Mars or Jupiter or Saturn or any of the others. So as the Earth is going around, at some point, because it's got less of a distance to travel, at some point it's going to meet up with these other planets and then overtake them. So overtake, maybe that's the wrong word to use, but because they've got a further distance to travel, the Earth has got less of a distance to travel, so the Earth will go past them at some point. Now, as the Earth is going past them, it looks like the other planets are going slower. They're not. They're not going slower at all. It's just that they've got further to travel. And it appears that they're going slower, or even appears that they're going backwards. And appears is the operative word in retrograde. It doesn't actually go slow or backwards. It's just an appearance. It's just an illusion, basically. Now, when we get to the two planets nearest to the sun, which is Mercury and Venus, now this is a little bit different because obviously they move faster than the Earth does, so the Earth is not going to catch them up. It's going to be them that catch the Earth up because the Earth has got further to travel than Mercury and Venus. So as Mercury and Venus catch up with the Earth and then go past, it looks as though the Earth is going backwards or going slower. In which case, and that's where we class Mercury and Venus as being retrograde. Okay, so there's a bit of a discrepancy there, whether it's an outer planet or an inner planet, as you might say. Okay, so, but that basically tells you what a retrograde is when astrologers talk about retrogrades. But now let's have a look where it's actually come from, all this adverse meaning, like Mercury retrograde being causing lots of problems and things like that. Let's just have a look at this for a minute. So I'm just going to put that down. Now, Retrogrades have been spoken about since ancient times. So the Greeks, the Romans, the Sumerians, and even the Mayans have mentioned retrogrades. And one of the earliest texts was Ptolemy, and he basically said that when a planet is in retrograde, it loses its strength. Nothing about it causing problems, right? It just loses its strength. Then, as we come up a bit, in the 17th century, there was a political advisor named William Lilly. This was in the English Civil War. And he basically suggested that when a planet is retrograde, such as Mercury, then it gives an unexpected return. And he gives an example, such as a runaway horse. So basically, what he was saying was that when a planet is in retrograde, like Mercury, for instance, then one of your horses that has run away, as I say, this was the English Civil War, that's going to come running back, or maybe it's a person you haven't seen for a while who is going to make an appearance, something like that. Okay, so none of these talked about adversity, none of them. It's only when we get to the 20th century that the adverse aspects actually come to the fore. Now, Mercury retrograde adversely was mentioned in the 1960s. It was then mentioned again in the 1980s when computers were being developed and were coming out to the public. And then, this was basically when astrology became, well, the 1960s, you got all the flower power, and a lot of spiritual, I'll get my words right in a minute, spirituality, or spiritual things, as they call them, were coming more popular. But so things like astrology were then looked at a lot closer by a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have had it in their families or anything beforehand. But when we get to the 21st century, the 2000s, this is really when the adverse reasoning of Mercury retrograde actually really takes off. And firstly, there was I think it was a tweet or something like that by there was the Real Housewives. You remember that TV program from America? And as I say, I don't watch TV now, so I have no idea whether it's still on or not. But this, I know it was on years ago when I was watching the TV. There was something called the Real Housewives in America, and there was one where one of the women actually is quoted as saying, I think she tweeted it, "Is Mercury retrograde or something because I'm having a shit day?" And Mercury was retrograde at the time. But is that the reason she was having a bad day? you know, come on. There's no reason that to blame Mercury for that. There was no reason behind it. But this was picked up by another person off TV who tweeted, "I need to ask at Bravo Andy to please never again shoot the reunion when Mercury is in retrograde." Well, again, is this Mercury retrograde's fault? I mean, you could say here we're talking about technology. New technology is in the Aquarian age, isn't it? New technology, has that got anything to do with Mercury? Then we had, as well, we had in 2014 a singer by the name of Taylor Swift, who many people know. And she did an interview with MTV, and she said, now listen to these words really carefully, "Everything is going to be completely wrong and messed up and miscommunicated. your phone will break, or you'll send a text message and it won't get to the person it's supposed to go to. Wow. Well, I don't think she's an astrologer. Maybe she's a fortune teller. I don't know. But, how about putting fear into people's minds that everything's going to go wrong? Wow. Isn't she brilliant? Yeah. And then she said, I think it was in the same interview as well, Hella in retrograde. Yeah, well, Taylor Swift and her partner did an interview, not an interview, an advertisement in the last few years where her partner is dressed up as Satan. And this advertisement is for a dating company, and you may be able to find it on the internet. I'm not sure. Just do a Google search. You can find most things nowadays. But he's dressed up as Satan with his horns and everything. And apparently they were going by, or this dating company was going by Better the Devil You Know or something like that. Now, if it's metaphorically speaking, better the devil you know, well, if you know somebody, you don't need to join a dating app then, do you? Or a dating company. You normally join a dating company to meet someone new. And if you want to meet someone new, I mean, how many people are actually going to say, I'd like to meet Satan? You know, not many people, right? Most of us want to meet nice people who are genuine, decent people, not raving axe murderers or weirdos. So that sort of tells you where Taylor Smith's thoughts go, doesn't it? Right. So let's go back to the the planets again. Okay. So I'm just going to show you something else now. Alright, so there's not much, going by that, there's not much at all that states that Mercury retrograde is going to cause any adverse reactions to anyone. There's nothing at all to state there. In fact, when I'm recording this, I have had problems with the internet all day today. And well, not so much the internet, problems with my printer basically not working properly. Mercury is not retrograde at the moment, right? So I blame it on myself, not on a planet, okay? But let's have a look at these again. Right, so we have here the planets are all lined up in this picture. Okay, on the back there, all apart from Jupiter, which is over there. Now, when they're lined up like this, we class that as a conjunction. It's basically when the planets are on the same degree as another planet. It could be one, two, three. It could be quite a few of them, or it may just be like two of them that are lined up. But when it's a conjunction, basically we see that as where the two planets, or however many planets there are, the planets concerned in that conjunction, their energies are reacting very beneficially to each other, and they're actually strengthening each other, and they're working in a very harmonious way. So I think it's seen as probably the best aspect to have the conjunction. Now, when the planets start moving away, like Jupiter here, the conjunction becomes weaker until eventually the planets are too far apart and there is no more conjunction. It literally is just a couple of degrees where that conjunction, the effects are going to be felt. So as Jupiter's moving away there, Jupiter has come out of that conjunction, so its effects are weaker. Now, in my mind, this is what the ancient people meant when they said retrograde was becoming, where the planet was becoming weaker. It's literally because they are moving out of that conjunction. If you think about it, oh, excuse me, when the planets are going round and they meet up with one of the outer planets, right? and they're basically caught up with one of the outer planets. When they catch up, they are literally lined up with that planet, and it's in conjunction. And it's only when they start going past that planet and that planet looks as though it's going slower or going backwards that that conjunction separates. So again, there's no adverse effects there. It just literally means that the conjunction is separating. Therefore, that beneficial strengthening, that beneficial energy of those planets concerned is no longer taking place, has become a lot weaker until it separates. Not adverse at all. It's just a weakness. It's just literally that conjunction is going. Okay. So even a weakness, it just means that there's no aspect there between the planets after the conjunction separates. So there's no they're not working off each other. There's no energy between them at all. That's all it is. Okay. So when people start going on about Mercury retrograde, bringing everything's going to go wrong, they're being really stupid. This is well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I think this is where people have picked up on the influence of celebrities, TV stars, singers who are not astrologers, and they've picked up on their influence and they're basically living in fear. That's what it is. Now, we do know that there are certain people who like to control other people and who, I mean, you've only got to look at the media, haven't you? You've only got to look at the news on the TV. It is constantly negative and putting people in a state of fear. Because when you're in a state of fear, you are easier to control. Okay, it's as simple as that, right? Now, I've actually said to people when people get so controlled and so fearful, at some point they're going to break and they're going to fight against it. So when you watch the news, you'll see all this negativity, and then at the end they'll say, now on a happier note, and they'll give you something positive to look at, just to break that 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 thought that you might fight against them. Basically, it's just to give you that little bit of hope to stop you getting to the right bottom where you're going to fight and start getting to the top, start coming back to the top and fighting them and pushing them down. That's what they don't want. But this again, with all this like Mercury retrograde, how come the other planets aren't talked about when they're in retrograde? Because they all go retrograde apart from the Earth. Okay, but you never hear anything, well, Uranus is retrograde. You never hear anything like that, do you? You know, and people don't get frightened of that. It's only Mercury. And to me, it is because of these people, these celebrities who've done it and have frightened the life out of people. And unfortunately, because these celebrities have got such a lot of following, that people have picked up on it and have carried it further. And we've even got proper astrologers now who are producing this stuff as well, with Mercury retrograde and all the things are going to go wrong and that. No, it's stupid. The planets cannot go slower or backwards. It does not happen. It is only an appearance, an illusion, an optical illusion, an hallucination, even. Right? It does not happen. Okay? And all it is when the conjunction begins to separate, the planets begin to separate. It becomes that conjunction is no longer working the energy for the two planets working together. It is no longer there. It gets weaker as the conjunction separates. Right? That is all it is. So stop being frightened when people talk about Mercury retrograde. You know what it is now. There's no reason for you to be afraid. And just explain to people why you're afraid of that. How many people are not into astrology and do not have any problems when Mercury is retrograde? How many people who are into astrology, like myself, who have problems with communication issues when Mercury is not retrograde, like I have with the printer today. And I'm actually recording this on the 15th of May, so I'll probably put this out this afternoon. Just check it, and then I'll put it out. So just make a note of how many people have problems, and Mercury's not retrograde. It's such a stupid thing for media to be pushing out, because media are pushing it out now. It's on the news as well, won't you know? Mercury's retrograde. Oh, you better start being in fear. Yeah. When you're in fear, they're controlling you. Are you? Yeah, come on, take control of yourself, okay? Right? Do you deal with your own responsibilities? Are you going to pass it off to somebody else? Right? Stand up for yourself. Take responsibility for your own actions and for things that go wrong in your life. Right? Take responsibility yourself and stop blaming something else. Because this is when you are giving your control over to other people. Okay? And that is very detrimental for each person who does it. Okay. And I think maybe I should just leave it there. But I hope you have understood what I've said there. If you have any questions or if you have any comments, I know there are going to be some astrologers out there who won't agree with what I've said. That's fine. I go by simple facts, how the planets go around the sun. Very simple facts, okay? And if you look at what the ancients said about retrogrades, you can see it there as well. They say it's a weakness. It just planets go weaker. Well, they go weaker because the conjunction is separating. That's all it is. It's not adverse. There is no reason for anyone to say that things are going to go wrong when something is retrograde, as they want to call it. Okay. So, like I say, yeah, leave me any comments that you want below. It's absolutely fine. I'm fine to stand on what I stand my ground on what I'm saying here, and what I think, because I go by basic facts. If other people have got the facts to say that there's adverse, fine, let me know it, because when you watch people when they have various problems, like in communication problems, it's not always when Mercury is retrograde, right? If Mercury retrograde causes communication problems, then that would mean that the majority of people would have problems when Mercury is retrograde, and that is not the case, right? It is not the case. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm wobbling on now, aren't I? Waffling on. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Take care. Bye.